What a great moment. Thanks to the four of you for being willing, having the courage, really, just to get up here and to share, but also the humility that it takes to say the words you said about your home country, and the grace that you extended to us by vulnerably sharing with us your experience. I'm really grateful for that. That's what this space is all about. This is a space where we affirm together that we are an important part of this community. And this morning we're going to have a chance to invite you to take the next step in claiming your place in community. Last week, Dean Al Sturgeon shared with us what it means for us to be part of community, what it means for us to give ourselves up for the good of our community. We're going to continue sitting in that sentiment, the idea that you are part of God's people. You're an important part of community, and we want to invite you to step into intentional relationships. This morning, I'm going to share with you about the program that I am really blessed and honored to lead called the Joshua Project. The Joshua Project is a mentoring program that pairs students with other students and pairs students with adult mentors. And there's this beautiful chain of mentoring relationships that occurs all over our campus, all over our city, that this morning you're going to have a chance to hear from a couple of folks who have benefited greatly from their mentoring friendship. But just so you know a little bit more about what the Joshua Project is about, I want to show you a quick video that will tell you just a bit more information. Let's watch this video together.
Life is full of surprises. Some days are filled with countless reasons for celebration, while others are marked by struggle. Yet all of these experiences, the good and the bad, are meant to be shared. At the Joshua Project, we come alongside Lipscomb University students to help them develop effective mentoring relationships. We pair incoming freshmen with core student mentors, and we pair our core student mentors with adult mentors. These relationships are simple, humble, and intentional, helping us grow more deeply in friendship with God and each other. All we ask is that you commit to meeting in your mentoring pair for 1 hour every 2 weeks for 1 school year. You don't need to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to listen and learn together. No one should journey alone. So no matter where you are in life, we invite you to join us as we seek to grow in friendship with God and each other. Let's journey together.
So as you saw, the Joshua Project pairs freshman students with upperclassmen and pairs upperclassmen with an adult mentor. And each of those mentoring pairs commit to spending an entire year together, growing in friendship, in mentorship, in relationship. There are people who come together who never would have met had it not been for the Joshua Project. And there's this incredible thing that happens whenever we intentionally lean into relationship, sometimes especially with folks who are different than us. Sometimes that kind of relationship can blossom into unbelievably beautiful friendship and companionship. And this morning I want to share with you through a couple of my friends the story of how that happened. So with me this morning I'm glad to have Matt Hogan, who's here. Matt's an alumni of Lipscomb University from a few years back. We also have Joe Ivey, who teaches in the College of Business and does a few other things here on campus. And I brought Matt and Joe because they have a special friendship, a special relationship that I know caught my eye and ear whenever I heard about it, and I wanted to invite them the chance to share their story together. So, Matt and Joe, thanks for being here, first of all, spending your time with us. Glad to have you here in the gathering.
Yeah, Joe almost didn't quite make it up on the stage.
No, that's because I'm old.
It's because he's old, he said.
Because he's old.
Yeah.
Matt, this isn't your first time on the gathering stage either. I know that when you were a student, you actually were up here quite a bit, so I'm glad to have you back. And I want to hear from the both of you, how did all this start? Maybe where are we now, and how did we get here?
Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess just like you, I was a Lipscomb student. It was actually, I think, the first year that the Joshua Project was a thing, and just stepped onto campus as a freshman. It was 2011. I didn't know anyone. I came from Chattanooga. I didn't really know many folks, especially that were my age. I knew some older guys. And actually growing up, I actually had several mentors, several people in my life that I would claim to, I think, what you guys are calling like an intentional relationship, people that walked alongside of me, helped me, just helped to equip me, actually, in my faith, how to see how I'm going to engage the world, all those kinds of things. So anyways, the Joshua Project became a thing my freshman year, and I just jumped in. It really just was an opportunity that I think Lipscomb does an amazing job, actually, of just providing opportunities for you to just tap into, to let them bless your life, to maybe just be a part of your rhythm, a way that you engage the campus for the next 4 years. You have, or however many years, 1 year, I mean, you may have 1 year left. You have 1 year to consider this program, and it could just be another thing, actually, that blesses you. And I guess at that time, one of the things I was thinking was, why would I not step into a program that was actually designed to help me flourish with a mentor?
Yeah.
So it was really just an opportunity that was right here, and I just went for it.
Did you all know each other before you were put together?
Not at all. Not at all. We met in Starbucks for the first time. You had a lot more hair then.
Yeah.
You had really big hair. That's the first thing. That was the first impression I had. Is this young kid with a lot of big hair.
That's what you do as a freshman. You just
have lots of hair. Okay, yeah. So no, we didn't know each other at all. I guess the reason we got paired up is Matt was a business major. It was the first time, as he mentioned, the Joshua Project had been done, and so we were all kind of experimenting. I got involved for sort of the same reason he did, just to get to meet other people, get to kind of hear from students. Didn't know what was going to turn out. So it's hard to believe it's been 8 years, though.
Yeah, would you just maybe talk about, I mean, you guys still know each other, you're still friends. How has that happened over the last several years since you were paired first as Joshua Project mentors?
Yeah, I think mentor relationships specifically. So, when I say mentor, I mean like an older to a younger. I don't think that gap really matters. I just think that there should be a gap just because of life experiences and what that looks like. But I think when you're looking at, I guess, getting involved in this kind of relationship, there's two ways to look at it. There's two things that it requires, really. One is willingness, and the second is openness. So the willingness piece is just stepping in, just like raising your hand and saying, this is going to be something that I'm going to do. And the openness side is in a couple of ways. One is openness to what this relationship actually would look like, but then two, openness to, I think, ultimately what makes this happen, which is the Holy Spirit. I think there's this Holy Spirit intervention, this thing that came alongside Joe and I that said, this is good, and this is going to be a thing that's critical, I think, actually for your life. I think that mentoring, intentional relationships is critical for the Christian life. I don't think you can actually flourish without what I think mentor can become is a helpful guide or a security or authority, actually, that walks with you, that helps you through some difficult conversations and things in life. I mean, it's critical for me, and even for my wife. We can talk about that, about kind of the marriage side of it too. But yeah, I think it's a critical for my own spiritual journey, I guess, to say.
And one of the things from that I think mentoring relationships, intentional relationships, kind of get our understanding may not be quite as good as it ought to be, is it's not a one-way street. So Matt and I have maintained a really good friendship for the last 8 years, not because I'm always able to mentor him, but because we walk together. It's not me walking alongside him, it's us walking together through life. And so I get as much out of it as I'm able to give to Matt. And that was something that I probably would not have appreciated until I got into that kind of relationship. But we just do life together, still do.
Yeah, I think a lot of mentorship, the misconception is that it's just this one-way street of a deposit of information, where like I come to Joe, I'm a junior in college, I come to Joe and I'm saying, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life. Like, I don't know what job I'm gonna take out of college. I don't know what my life's supposed to look like. Joe, tell me. I think that's kind of the misconception of what a true mentor relationship ought to be. I think that's how it sometimes is, maybe because of just capacity or relational capacity or just time and those kinds of things. So I understand that, and that actually is a good thing. But I think what we're trying to show today is that there is a strong discipleship relationship here. And I think like holistic, really good mentoring actually is discipleship. And it's not like a one-way street. It's very much a discipleship kind of relationship.
So you talked a little bit about just willingness and openness and committing to spending time together, not having this mentality of a one-way relationship. So what does that look like practically for the two of you over the years? How did you begin by spending time together? How have you continued to spend time together intentionally, meaningfully?
Well, since we're both good rule followers, at least on the surface, we did do the Joshua Project, spend every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks get together. That was the program back then, so we did that. But it kind of grew from that to where we kind of liked being with each other. And so we'd start meeting, we went for a long time meeting every week or a couple of times a week, and especially catching up with text and that kind of thing. And so that was a lot of what we did, especially while Matt was in school. And then after, we've just continued that rhythm. I mean, we'll have dinner tonight. It was just kind of time to do that. It just happened to be that it kind of corresponds with today. But we get together, we spend time together. Matt's married now, so our wives are with us sometimes. And so it's just kind of grown as we've each gone to different stages of life.
Yeah, I think back to what I was saying a second ago, mentorship and discipleship, the difference there of what I'm trying to communicate is that I think mentorship says, in some cases, mentorship says, come follow me. And discipleship says, come with me, or let's go together. Like there's this element to our relationship where he does actually often deposit tons of life's wisdom and just this wealth of knowledge that his life experiences just have that I don't, where he's able to deposit that into my life and speak that kind of truth into my life. But then there's other times where like we go to dinner and we just chat or we just talk. It's just this, when you're doing what a lot of people say, like when you're doing life together, that's really what it begins to look like. It's just this you prioritize the relationship. And again, I just think it's critical for the Christian life to have that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
One of the things I think that we both kind of had to get comfortable with early on was whether we could trust each other. Because to have the kind of relationship we have now, there had to be a lot of trust. And I think both of us, you heard just a little bit earlier, both of us kind of went into this because we thought it was the thing we ought to do, being a campus professor, being a student leader on campus. And so we were going to do it. And then we had to kind of work up and make sure we could trust each other, because it's from that basis of trust that you can begin to build relationship. And you can't be transparent unless you trust that the person is going to respect that transparency and is going to honor whatever it is that Matt may know about me or I may know about him, that we can build on that. And that's where the depth of relationship comes. So I think a lot of the reason we've been able to do this for 8 years is that we do have a great deal of trust with each other.
That's great. I'm assuming that trust, you just said, didn't come from the very beginning.
Right.
It came from monotony, like consistency, spending time together.
Yeah, it came from consistency, spending time together, and we probably each threw out something that was to each other that required a little bit of trust, but wouldn't harm either one of us if that trust was violated, just to sort of experiment a little bit. And we held on to it. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, so I know you guys, you've been friends for 8 years now, so I'm sure you've seen a lot of life together. A lot has happened in each of your lives. Could you maybe just tell us about one significant season where this friendship has been especially meaningful? What's one moment over the last few years where you were especially grateful that you had Joe as a friend or you had Matt as a friend?
Yeah, I guess some of like kind of the practical ways of what that's looked like. So, the first is I met my wife Hannah here as a student at Lipscomb, and we got married a little over a year ago.
It's a longer story than that, by the way.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It is complicated.
Lost my train of thought. Oh, he
you
officiated my wedding.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's
what it was. He officiated our wedding. Joe talked about our wives being a part of this relationship, and that's become actually true. It's become a place where Hannah and his wife Melinda have just kind of developed their own type mentorship kind of conversation and relationship, and that's been amazing. And then through college, I lost several really close family members to me. And just wrestling through some of the grief and some of those experiences, one of the key people that was able to come alongside me. Because, I mean, I had friends and people at school that were able to step into that gap, but it's just you don't quite know the value of a 30 age gap or whatever. 30 age gap, the value of that. Speaking into that was just, I can't really describe it fully.
Yeah.
And there are always in the cycles of life, there are always you go through tough times. Not everything's on a mountaintop. There are valleys here, and some of us have valleys that may get deeper than others. And one of the things that I'm always sure of is that if I am going through a tough time, that I can talk with Matt about that, and it's not going to be disclosed anywhere else. It's and he's going to listen, and I know he's going to have my best interest in mind, and that he's going to see the challenges that I'm facing at a particular time, and he may speak truth into those challenges. He may just be there to help me kind of wrestle with them myself. But that's what happens in good friendships.
That's great. I mean, you both mentioned that you started participating in this because you felt like it was a good thing to do, it was a valuable thing to do, it was probably the right thing to do. But there must have been at least something that would have kept you from participating. A fear, a concern. We talked a little bit about just that trust factor, but what else would have maybe kept you from participating, from joining in this type of intentional relationship that you would want to just kind of silence that fear in anyone who's here listening today?
Well, mine is, would it really be worth my time? We all get into things we think we ought to do, and we just kind of it becomes a drudgery because it's just a drain on time, which we all have limited amounts of. And so the biggest fear I had, because I can control, at least initially, I can control what I reveal about myself, and I can control trust. So the biggest fear is that just going to be a waste of an hour every week or two. And so I had to kind of get comfortable with that idea that this is really worthwhile. And it took a few times to figure out that it wasn't going to be a waste, but that was the big fear I had to overcome.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we all understand and live in a society of accomplishments, right? I mean, you're trying to get everything we do is a striving of succeeding or accomplishing that task or those various things. And I think my biggest fear, I guess the risk that I thought I was taking at that time was this might fail. We could just get together and then over the course of a semester we could just phase out, or it could just become something that's a useless, it's just not a good use of our time, or there's just no true connection. And so I have other, it goes to say that I have had other mentorship kind of tries or experiments to see, is this a good fit? Would this be a great thing? And I think you have to go through those too. Mm-hmm. And so it's not to say that the Joshua Project is perfect, it doesn't bat 1,000. I mean, there's gonna be stories where it's not completely a perfect fit relationally for the two of you. But that doesn't mean you should try. I mean, you should absolutely give it your effort and jump into it. Because I think ultimately, I was reading on, I think it was Wall Street Journal, but they released an article about how we are basically in a loneliness epidemic. I mean, you think about social media, you think about the tribalism, you think about all these challenges I think that we're up against socially in our culture today. And it was saying that 18 to 32-year-olds did this huge survey, and 30% of 18 to 32-year-olds said that they are lonely. And that means often or always lonely. And that I think encompasses the place that we're at right now, the place that our culture is at. We get behind our phones, we can spend easily an entire night or even a whole weekend sitting in our room or being on our phones or just checking out Instagram or doing whatever. And it's you can spend so much time doing those things, and it's only playing into that loneliness side of our world today. And so it's just so critical for community, for relationships like this, to get you out of that, to call your blind spots, to be able you can trust. Where Joe's saying, Matt, I noticed that you're picking up this habit, or I've noticed that you're saying this a lot. Tell me more about that. And so the loneliness, you just defeat that challenge. And so we're just up, I think, against a very challenging cultural moment to say that loneliness is at an all-time high. And so I think if you don't have at least one meaningful relationship, you need one. You need at least one friend or one person that can call your blind spots, that you can trust, that you're walking alongside of in life.
That's right. They can speak truth, can speak life, can speak grace, all those things. We need those types of relationships. I'm glad you mentioned that not every mentoring relationship that happens through the Joshua Project ends up in an 8-year friendship where you're still having dinner together this many years later. But it never would have happened had you not been willing to take that first step. How important that is to have the courage, the willingness, the openness to jump into a relationship like this. So thank you to both of you for sharing your story a little bit this morning. Would you join me in thanking Matt and Joe just for letting us in a little bit? So I do want to let you know you have an opportunity to sign up, to participate, to buy into an intentional relationship. The deadline to sign up for the Joshua Project for this year is on Thursday. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about what that looks like, we're going to have an orientation meeting on Thursday afternoon at 5 o'clock in Swain Business Center. So join us there if you want to hear just a bit more, if you're not quite sold yet. But I do want to let you know we're not quite done yet, because maybe for some of you, you're sitting here thinking, I just don't know if I'm ready for this type of a relationship. Like, I don't know if I'm ready to jump into a one-on-one mentoring relationship. We believe wholeheartedly that intentional relationships are essential to making it through life, to combating some of this loneliness that we feel. But it doesn't have to only happen through one-on-one mentoring. I'm going to bring Fallon up to tell you about one way that our office is trying to make more space for intentional relationships. So I'll hand it over to Fallon.